I'm here to interview you for this biotech sales position, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I want to start off with asking a little bit about yourself, your background, your education, and anything that will set you apart, like your previous job experience. So anything you want to tell me?
Well, I'm 22. I've done my undergraduate degree in petroleum engineering, which wouldn't seem like it would prepare me for a job in the medical field. But I think through the analytical thinking that I've learned through all the curriculum that I've been put through as part of engineering has really prepared me for the rigor and work needed to be successful in the medical industry.
Mm-hmm. And so this job requires a lot of teamwork, just working with managers and other employees. So could you give me an example of your favorite teamwork experience and how that applies in your life in this job, maybe?
Sure. Well, I think my teamwork experience goes back to high school. I was part of a swim team there where we were kind of just a few guys that had a big dream, and we kind of made goals that we wanted to win state. And, most teams are 20, 30 people, and we had 5 guys on our team. And through our work and through our perseverance, through different challenges, we ended up being the top public school in the state, so it was a really fun experience.
That's awesome. So you would say that working together helped you achieve the bigger goal?
Yeah, I think we all knew that we needed each other to succeed, and as soon as we figured that out, everything fell into place.
So in this job, there's a lot of marketing of specifically biotech items, and what would you say is your most important tool in like selling something to a customer? So communication, your attitude, your personality, what would you decide is your best factor?
I think communication is definitely my biggest strength. Just being able to convey the importance and necessity to the consumer that our product is not only the product they need, but the one that's going to work most efficiently for their situation.
Awesome. And communication is a really big factor because you're going to be speaking face-to-face with your employees, so that's great that you have that. How competitive are you, and why is competition important to you? Like, do you think you need an equal balance of competition, knowing when to work together, or is competition more important than that for you?
I've always been in a competitive environment. I've done sports my whole life, and I think competition is a great extrinsic motivator, especially for me. A lot of times, I'm very good at intrinsic motivating myself, but a lot of times that added little boost of trying to outdo others is kind of what pushes me to the next level.
Would you say that you know when to be competitive, when not to be competitive, like when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I think there's always been a fine line, and once you've done it this long, you've kind of figured out where that line is.
And what's a recent goal you set for yourself, and how did you achieve it? Like, what steps? Like, do you think you take it day by day to achieve this large end goal, or would you say just everything that you do in general just adds to this big life goal?
I've always been one person to set small goals that work up to a big goal. So I guess one of the big goals I've had recently has been trying to get back into shape. And, if you try to tackle going from not working out at all to working out 30 hours a week, it's really difficult. But when you break that down day by day and kind of build into it, it becomes a much more manageable
So
goal.
you would say that working small step towards a larger goal is easier than just tackling the goal head on?
Right.
Okay, sweet. And could you give me an example of when you agreed with someone or your manager or someone above you and how you handled this? Like, let's say you didn't agree with a policy they set or a rule or something, and how this affected you and how you changed this?
When I disagreed? I don't really have a good example of workplace, but I know just being a kid, a lot of times you tend to want to disagree with your parents, and it comes down to realizing that they have a lot more experience and have a lot better of a big picture view of where you may be at. And once you learn to respect that, I think it's a lot easier to accept that their guidance or their decisions, while they might not make sense to you, probably make sense for the business's best foot forward.
So you would say that respecting your manager's position is important in terms of like handling disagreements and stuff like that, and how they handle their like day-to-day operations?
Definitely.
Okay. Could you describe a situation where you had to deal with someone that was very upset with you and how you changed their opinions or maybe made them feel better about a situation?
Sure. Well, as part of the swim team, there was an instance where basically there was a guy who was saying some pretty unscientific stuff about swim performance and the relationship between your health and swimming. And me being an engineer, everything I think is rooted in logic. So I disagreed with him there, and he got pretty upset and came down to realizing that you have to think differently and understanding how different people think.
That's cool. And you're given a territory for this job and like a list of doctors to call on. So how would you like organize and prioritize this list? Would you organize by location maybe? So if you're in the same area, you call on all these certain doctors and then move on to the next one, or would you prioritize more by importance of like the doctors you're calling on?
Well, I think first I'd look where I needed to be for that day, and then prioritize the doctors in that area, and then with whatever time I have left, try to move on to some of the other
Sweet.
positions.
And what is an example of you conforming to a rule that you didn't agree with? So something like maybe you had to adapt to a new software policy for taking notes, or you couldn't take hand notes instead, and then you had to use an iPad or a tablet to get customer signatures. Like, do you have a situation where you had to conform with something you just didn't totally agree with?
Right. So at my old work, there was a situation where there was this separate facility, which just for all intents and purposes we'll call Tigerland, and so we weren't allowed to go there specifically because it had some things in there that seemed like they could be helpful to our well-being, but at the same time, the leaders in place just couldn't oversee some of the past events that happened in so-called Tigerland. And so trying to figure out how we could, succeed at our jobs in the best way possible without doing what a lot of other companies had done and going to, as I said, we'll call it Tigerland. It was really difficult trying to figure out how we could still be successful and enjoy what we do. But again, it comes down to respecting the coach's decisions, and maybe our performance wasn't where it needed to be, but we didn't go to Tigerland. So
would you say that your performance was one of the reasons why you had trouble conforming to this rule, so that like you felt you deserved this, but your company said maybe don't go there, and you were like, I don't understand why, but then at the end you're just like, in the end the company knows best.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm a big data-driven person, and looking at the data, you couldn't see any discernible difference between those that had gone to, we'll call it Tigerland, and those that hadn't gone there. So it was just really hard to understand what could drive a decision to keep us from something that we sort of found helpful to our well-being.
And what's an ethical dilemma that you haven't experienced while working with customers? So let's say there's a coworker that is bribing someone to buy more of their product, or let's say there's a coworker that's bribing a manager to give them better opportunities. Have you experienced anything like that?
I've been in an experience where there was a third-party vendor who was working with a competitive company, and basically came to me and was offering for me to see the competitor's data, which is illegal in companies that are publicly traded. And so it was really hard because that data was pretty important to the project I was working on, but just realizing that you have to do what's ethical was the most important thing at the time. So I had to deny that.
Thanks for coming in. I'll let you know if we decide to have you for the position. Thanks for your time today.